Are you in a position where you're defined by your age, and that's limiting you to pursue a dream or goal you want to accomplish? The More Than Your Age podcast is about having conversations with women who fully live their lives without being dictated or defined by their age. This is a space to encourage women who feel blocked to pursue a dream or goal based on their life circumstances. Welcome to the More Than Your Age podcast. I am your host, Erica Pasvar. Let's start living life fully and become more than your age. Joining the More Than Your Age podcast is 6-star finisher, a Road Runners Club of America certified coach, keynote speaker, and author of Running the World, Robyn Godfrey. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, Robyn, I feel like I know you really well because I listened to your book. And so I spent a lot of time with your voice, and I felt like I was like, oh, hey, Robyn, like we're going to listen to Robyn today, but we haven't really chatted before in real life, but I enjoyed listening to your book and getting a glimpse of the running world in a way that I was completely oblivious to. I'm not a runner. I know people who run, and that's it. Like, I know they run. Congratulations. I knew it was a group of hardworking individuals who just had this type of camaraderie with other runners that non-runners just really don't get and understand. Your group of dedicated people. But man, the hours, the preparation, the pain, the thoughts that go on in your mind, and everything that you go through. I remember you saying in your book that, it's a hobby or a race that you're paying for, but it's like this passion, something that you're passionate about. And so I'm excited to continue talking about it. But first, Robyn, I want to hear, how old are you?
I am 59.
59 years old. When do you turn 60?
May.
May!
Soon.
It's coming. It's coming. We're more than our age, Robyn.
This is true. At least it's next year, not this year. So
That's right.
turning 60 next year. And I still feel, 18 in the head. Sometimes the body doesn't want to cooperate, but I still just feel so young in my head and want to do so many more things and, just never really stop going after goals and dreams. So this is a perfect podcast for me to be on.
I love it. Well, and so as a 6-star finisher, you were not what many would consider a quote unquote pure athlete, a runner. In fact, you really didn't start running until your mid to late 40s, 46, 47. And you share a handful of stories in your book about being this clumsy teenager trying all different types of activities, from band to cheerleading. You went on a ski trip and had this unexpected accident, all to show that athleticism was not in your favor at the time. So tell us a little bit about those clumsy teenage years.
Yeah. I still am pretty clumsy, even though I'm no longer a teenager. So I was never athletic growing up. I was very much a social butterfly. I was one of those kids who had on their report card, Robyn talks too much to her neighbor, those type of comments. But I was never athletic. I was really skinny and gangly, and I didn't really get control of my arms and legs until I was probably in my 20s. But I wanted to do athletic things. I wanted to be a part of a team. And I just didn't have any natural ability. Nowadays, kids are definitely learning these things much earlier than we were when we were kids. And so they're learning a lot more about eye-hand coordination, and they're starting soccer at, 4 and 5 years old. We just didn't really have that when I was growing up. So I didn't have the ability to be athletic until much later in life, but I just so wanted to be in that social group and to be a part of the team and to have that interaction with other folks and that camaraderie. And I just didn't have that until much later in life, but I was definitely accident prone and I still am today. I still do kind of clumsy falling and things like that. So it's always still there. And it's funny, I struggle with the label of athlete still to this day because I never felt like I was really an athlete. And I struggle with that label, but I know that I am because I'm doing the things that I have to do in order to enable myself to be athletic. So it's definitely one of those things inside of me that lives, but I'll always have a little bit of that clumsy teenager.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, because you said that, like now they're starting starting kids at like 3 and 4 with
Uh-huh.
sports and everything. Do you think that would have helped, or would it maybe just been clumsier earlier? I'm just curious.
I think it would have helped a lot. I think that having the ability to learn how to use your body and move your body in a way that is athletic from a younger age would have helped a lot. Now, whether or not my parents would have had the time or energy to take me to all these different events and do all those things, I don't know. But I think that when you learn these skills when you're young, you have this muscle memory that just stays with you throughout your whole life. You especially notice in people who swim or people who play tennis, they did it when they were kids, and it's like they still have that natural ability, even as adults, that they just never really grow out of because they learn how to do it as a child, and that muscle memory just stays with them. So I think definitely those things would have helped at a younger age, but who knows if I would ever have amounted to anything more than my athletic abilities today. But I definitely think that it might have helped with my clumsiness a little.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, so clumsiness, different things. Try different things. You want to be part of a team, but you're the social butterfly, and you share too that you like to have a good time. You like to go out, and do the things that people in their 20s and 30s,
Mhm.
40, that they do when you go out, and you eventually meet your husband Scott. You guys get married, and we kind of flash forward to then somehow, then all of a sudden running is introduced. But what I'm forgetting, because I didn't write this down, so please forgive me.
Sure.
From like your 20s to when you decided you wanted to start running, what were some of your hobbies? What were the things that you did for
Well, I
fun?
was I was always kind of a gym rat. So I would go to when I was single, I would go to this place called the Bally's Fitness Center. For those my age, probably remember this, and we would do aerobics. So jumping up and down, waving your arms around, and surprisingly, that gave me a lot more coordination just doing these different moves in aerobics classes. And then they went on to like step aerobics, which was even more coordination, that you had to use your feet and your arms, and you're stepping up and you're stepping down and you're going over up and over and all the things. And I really loved that. And I would go to these classes and it'd be the same people in there every time. And we would, try to keep up with the people who were really fit. And I loved it. I thought it was so fun. And the music was always really, pumping, and everybody was motivated in there. And then when I got a little bit older, we started playing tennis kind of socially with other people. And I was never really very good at tennis. My tennis friends laugh at me. They're like, "You weren't that bad," but I just never really had very eye-hand coordination. And my husband was really naturally good at tennis, so we played a lot of mixed doubles together. And that's a very social game. You can play doubles and you can have conversations kind of in between points, but it's also a game where you need to be very much engaged in what's happening during, a point or during the game, and just being very focused. And I struggled with that because I just wanted to chit chat with everybody. And I wasn't super competitive when it came to tennis. And some people really are. They're very serious and they're very competitive and they want to win. And for me, I just wanted to have a chit chat in between points. And when people didn't want to talk, I was like, what's wrong with this? Why can't we have a conversation? So I did do a lot of activities during that time, but I never was a runner. In fact, I used to say the only way you'll find me running is if somebody's chasing me. So I never thought about running. And I'd run a little bit in high school, but not enough to really bring on that feeling like I'm a runner. So yeah, it wasn't until I was on a business trip, and I worked in sales in the technical fields most of my career. So I spent a lot of time traveling. I was all over the country, going to meetings, going to conferences, happy hours, amazing dinners, lots of great wine, which sounds fabulous, right? But after a while, it starts to really catch up to you, not only in just how you feel, but you start to gain weight. And I was hitting my 40s. I'd always been very thin, and all of a sudden I was putting on weight that I'd never had to worry about before. And I woke up one morning and I just felt terrible. And I didn't want to feel like this anymore. And I was a little bit ashamed of myself. And it wasn't so much that I couldn't just stop drinking or stop going out. I just loved it. I loved being out with people. And you drink a glass of wine and you're having a conversation, and the next thing three glasses has gone down. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And I wanted to feel better about myself. And that's when I went to the gym in the hotel I was at, and I got on a treadmill and I decided to run. And I ran for 30 seconds. I set a timer and ran for 30 seconds. And I was sweating so bad. I was I was embarrassed that I could barely even do this. And when the 30 seconds was up, I was frantically pushing the button on the treadmill to go down to a walk again. And I did that for about 30 minutes. I was doing an interval of 30 seconds of running and like 5 minutes of walking. That's how long it took me to recover from the 30-second run. And so
Look at
I
you
did
now.
this. Yeah. And you know how when if you've had too much wine or something like that and you do some exercise, it makes you feel better. So I felt better. I felt more alert, and I felt like, okay, I'm a little bit detoxed now after all the sweating. But something about it just stuck with me. And I thought, I'm going to do this again. And I went to like my local gym and I started doing a couple of intervals on the treadmill, and it felt really good. And it kind of reminded me back of a time when I was a kid and I did run a little bit of track and how I felt really good after a run. And the next thing I know, I started running more and more and more, and it just kind of started to take over.
So as you're starting to run more and more and it does start to take over, were you looking into like at the gym, did you inquire about are there local running clubs, or did you just Google local running clubs, or did you meet people? Kind of how did all that unfold?
Well, I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is not a huge town. We're on a beach community with a very historic area in our downtown. And so I played tennis, in this town, and I knew a lot of people. And one of my tennis friends was a runner, and she said, well, you should come to our Wilmington Roadrunners run one evening. So I did, and it was a hill run, which I didn't know people did these, where you run up and down hills for real, like for on purpose to make yourself stronger and train. And so I had no idea that I was showing up to a hill run, but she told me it was pizza night. So I thought, oh, well, if we can have pizza afterwards, I'm all in. So I showed up, and it was crazy. First of all, it was the day after the Boston Marathon bombing. So that
Mm.
was kind of a strange time. There was a lot of uncertainty in the what was going on, what had happened. And we had a moment of silence before the run started, and we were all in a circle and we were holding hands, and I just felt so cringy because I didn't feel like I really belonged in this group.
Mhm.
And I had on a used pair of running shoes because I thought it was ridiculous to pay $75 for a pair of shoes, which now they're $175. I was wearing, cotton everything, which is like the biggest no-no for a runner. Cotton clothes are just not what you want to wear because it's chafing and sticking to you. But I started running with the group, and I had so much fun. And there was a couple people that were with me in the back, and we just laughed and had a good time. And I was lucky. The people that were there were very welcoming. They were very nice. And we had fun. We laughed. We went to the pizza afterward. And I just felt like this was a group that was so nice and welcoming to me. Even the people that were much faster than I was, they were so nice and helpful and giving me advice that I just felt like I was in the right place.
Hmm. Based on just like listening to your book as well, and then kind of what you said too, I find it, and I'm curious to know too, I just find it that it sounds like this runners are very welcoming to
Yeah.
everybody. And like, cause I would feel like if I were to walk into, I don't have any experience, like you feel intimidated, you're
Hmm.
not at their elite level. When you do start becoming more competitive and running faster, and like is there a sense of competition among one another while still maintaining a friendship? Is it a friendly competition, or kind of how does that unfold and look?
It is often yes and no. So there is definitely a camaraderie that comes with running, and there is a little bit of what I say pecking order, but I don't mean that in a negative connotation. There's people who are going to run a little faster than you, a little slower than you. And when you're in a race, you're thinking, well, I'm going to try and pass that person that's a little faster than me. And I'm definitely not going to let that person a little slower than me catch me. So there's definitely a little bit of that happening, at least in my head, there is. But there's also a feeling of if somebody does well in a race or has like an epic experience of just being so proud of that person and being very happy for them. At least I am. And I think most runners are like that. Now, you're always going to have people that, may feel threatened or whatever. And that's in any support or any area of life, really. But I think that, yes, there's a competition, but there's also a feeling of you're proud of your friends when they do well. You're proud of them when they just crush it, and you want that for them. And then there's times when you will be in that place where you've crushed it, and they want that for you. And I think that's one of the things that's really unique about at least my running group and the way we are with each other. Now, are all running groups that way? I don't know. Maybe not. But I feel like for the most part, runners are very accepting and welcoming and understanding no matter what your pace is or where you kind of fall in that world of competition. But one of the things, I was talking to a runner the other day, and they were telling me how fast they were in different races. And I said, well, there's always going to be somebody faster than you. Even the fastest person in the world, there are days when somebody is faster than them. And to me, I just don't want to let that steal my joy of running. So I try not to let that bother me when I'm out there. And at this age, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people faster than me. There always has been. So don't let that become so much a part of your identity that you can't enjoy running.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Well, and something else too that you would talk about would be, like you would go on a run, you'd have friends that would run with you, and then you would say, okay, hey, if you need to split off, and we'll meet up later at the finish line or the after party or whatever. And
Yeah.
so that's really helpful. Okay, so you're hooked. You were hooked. You started running. You get hooked, and at 50, you decided you wanted to run the London Marathon. You have to apply for it. It's a big deal. Things I never knew. I just thought like you sign up, you pay, and then you show up. And so
Yes.
for listeners who are unaware, like me, tell us about the process of applying. Why is this such a big deal? And then how could you easily not get accepted?
Well, like you, I thought I could just go to londonmarathon.com and sign up, and I would be able to run the London Marathon. And there's marathons that you can do that with, but London is not one of them. The London Marathon is, well, it keeps trading back and forth with, I think, Chicago and New York. It's the largest marathon in the world. So you have anywhere between 50 to 55,000 people that run this race every year. It's an incredible day. It's an incredible experience, but they are notorious for having hundreds of thousands of people apply to run this race. And you get turned down almost every year. People have like a 9-10 year stretch of trying to get into the London Marathon and they can't get in. And I think one of the biggest reasons why is not only its popularity, but also a huge amount of people run London Marathon for charity. It is the single largest charity event in the world. And I don't know if that's still the case, but it was for many years in a row. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. So they have a huge contingent of runners that are running for charity. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's hard to get into, is because so many people are running for charity for the event. And they raise hundreds of millions of dollars for all different kinds of charities, which is wonderful. When I thought about running the London Marathon, I had been out for a run with my girlfriends. We were just having a conversation about different races that would be fun to do. And we were kind of throwing different ones out there, like running all the boroughs of New York or running in the vineyards in France. And, still want to do that one. Running, different places. And one of the ones that kind of popped into my head was London. And I had always been obsessed about everything British. I just loved all the British romance novels when I was growing up, and just all the TV shows. And I just loved everything British. And I had never been to the UK before. So I thought, I want to run the London Marathon. I'm going to figure this out. And I went out to Google and I found at that time, they were basically just a travel agency called Marathon Tours that would put together trips for people who want to run a marathon anywhere in the world. And I never knew such a thing existed. But now there's, several different groups that do this. But you can say, okay, I want to run a marathon in Italy. And they have, all these different marathons in Italy. And they'll put a package together and you just pay them. And they create the whole experience for you. So that's what they had for the London Marathon. And they had 100-person lottery. And I'm not sure why they were doing this or how it came about. But I read about it on their website. 100-person lottery, 100 people. would be chosen to run the London Marathon. And they were having a little contest. So I threw my name in and I got a seat. I got a ticket to go to London for the marathon. I couldn't believe it. And now looking back, I can't believe I got in at all. I mean, it's just crazy. Just a absolute total luck. I should have bought some lottery tickets that day. Just absolute luck that I got in and was able to run the London Marathon as my first marathon.
That's so cool. Well, and you describe lots of things at that. Like the first thing, I wrote it down, so let me pull
Sure.
that. Okay, you describe the bathroom situation quite vividly in multiple scenarios. Where it's funny because I'm listening, or you listen to the book, and I'm thinking a lot of people don't do camping because of the bathroom situation, but the bathroom situation for running marathons, I think, is drastically worse.
Well, as a runner, period, the bathroom situation. I mean, it's funny. My mother will not ever go into a porta-john, and I was like, "Well, we live for porta-johns. That's kind of our world." And we have a joke in my running group that this one girl she can spot a porta-john a mile away, and we were thinking we need to create an app so that we know where all the porta-johns are. But porta-johns are our lifelines as runners. So we're always on the lookout for those. And you have to just get over that when you're a runner because it is just what it is. It's better than being out in the woods or whatever. But yeah, in London they have they had this really strange situation where I kind of went around like this curves and I walk into this area where there's all these women lined up in like a circle and all you could see was like bare butts. Everybody's pants were pulled down. And I'm thinking, what is happening right now? And somebody hands me this piece of cardboard. And I didn't know it was like basically a urinal for a woman. And everybody was peeing standing up. And I was looking at this thing going, how does this work? And so I'm looking around at everybody's bare butts. Like you can't see their face. You just see their back. And I just was like, I don't know what to do here. Please just point me to the porta-johns. And so when I came out of there, I luckily found the porta-johns. But that was a very unique experience that I had never seen before. And maybe it's at other races, but that was my first and only time I've ever seen that.
Yeah, that one specifically stood out to me where I was just like imagining what did that look like? How did that actually functionally happen? It happened. How are our clothes okay? All
Yeah. I didn't want to look, because I'm like, I don't want to watch somebody do this. But at the same time, I'm looking at this thing going, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with this. So it was a very strange moment. And yeah, I just kind of left quickly and went and thought there has to be porta-john somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and an ignorant thing too, as a non-runner, I would always think with marathoners or ultra marathoners, I think like, when do they go to the restroom? But you just kind of pull off, go to the bathroom, then you hop back in.
Yeah, there's a famous situation that happened to Shalane Flanagan, who is an American elite marathoner during I think it was the Boston Marathon a few years ago, 2018, and it was really cold, really bad weather, and she had to go to the bathroom. And I have never seen anyone go in and out of a porta-john faster. I don't know what happened in there, but it was literally about 5 seconds. And I thought, there's no way she could have pulled off her shorts and gone to the bathroom that quickly. So I'm not sure exactly what happened in there, but it was the quickest bathroom break I'd ever seen in my life. So I give her props for that.
Yeah. It's, sorry to people that this disgust. I mean, there's like other stories too that are also disgusting, like a future marathon that you would run where this man just like,
yeah.
Just
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, we don't have to talk about that one. People could read it in your book.
If you want
Yeah, read the book if you want to hear that story. Okay, so I remember in your book you mentioned wanting a goal by the age of 60, and I forgot to write it down exactly. Was it completing the six-star marathon finisher? Okay, so tell us the significance of this and why these 6 stars are such an esteemed accomplishment.
Well, the 6-star medal was introduced by Abbott Laboratories, which is a pharmaceutical company, and they created this event called the Abbott World Marathon Majors, and I think it started in 2016. And it's to honor runners who run 6 of the world major marathons. And those include Berlin, Boston, Chicago, London, New York, and Tokyo. And I think and there's a 7th one that just came about last year, and that's Sydney in Australia. And I think what's interesting about this race series is that an average, ordinary runner like myself can do it. All you have to do is sign up in their portal. And as you complete the races, you put in your times and they verify your times with the races. And then when you get to your last race, then when you go to that race, you get your 6-star medal, which I'll show you. It's a really cool medal.
Ooh,
And
that is cool.
yes. And so it is interesting because there's not a lot of people that have done this, right? So they always talk about the percentage of people that run marathons, and it's a very low percentage. But in the world, there's probably about 25,000 people that have actually done this series. And in the US, I think we're looking at less than 10,000 people have done it. And there's less than 8,000 women in the world that have done it. So it's a pretty small exclusive club, at least right now. It's growing very rapidly. But there isn't anything really very special that you have to do to get in this club other than run the races, which is not easy. The traveling, the time, the effort it takes to train, getting into these races is incredibly difficult. But that's all part of the process, and they're becoming very popular. And I think also what's interesting about this race series is that many elite runners, world record holders, people who are Olympians, they're also doing this too. They're running and they're getting their 6 stars. So people like Dina Castor just got her 6 stars. She won a medal in the Athens Olympics for a marathon. Different people are getting their 6-star medal just like I am, and they're elite marathoners that have been in the Olympics or world championships or whatever. So there's this feeling of kind of global community when you're at these races. Like we're all there running these incredible races in these amazing cities, and we're all kind of going after these same goals. And there's just something just really cool about that with all the things going on in the world and all the things that are happening that are negative. This is like a really fun, positive thing that is happening that makes you still believe that people are really good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really neat. And I didn't realize how small of a group it is of people who completed it. And I love too how you said you can have these elite athletes, and then you can have people who are also athletes like yourself who are running because you enjoy like this is your passion, this is a thing that you enjoy doing, and you are not that it's everyone is able to do it, but the fact that you have been able to run globally and compete this, and you accomplished it way before 60. So that's really cool. That's really, really neat.
Yeah, I think it's the idea of the everyday runner, the weekend warrior, along with people who get paid a lot of money to do this and who are world record holders and champions are also doing it. And we're all people doing the same thing. We're covering the same distance and we're doing the same race and we're getting the same medal, no matter how good or how average we are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really neat. Well, we had mentioned that there is this special bond between runners, an opportunity for close friendships, and then even like you were saying, you get to travel the world with these people and meet and build relationships with people from all over. A connection that, like I already said, that non-runners don't really have. You had a special moment at the airport when you left for your marathon to London, and these are maybe these are running friends and non-running friends, but your friends cheered you on, and countless other times people were by your side, whether it was your virtual run, training, traveling all over the states and the world. So tell us what this community means to you, how it has impacted you, and any moments that stand out for you.
Yeah, there's so many. I think one of the reasons why runners form such strong bonds is the fact that we are running side by side. I think it opens up a level of intimacy that you don't experience when you're sitting across from someone, looking at them straight in the eyes. It's something about the side by side activity. And I, in my book, I liken it to talking to a teenager. When you're in the car, they tend to open up a little bit more because you're both facing forward. And it's almost like it's just a different feeling when you're talking to someone. I'm sure therapists and counselors and all kind of understand this phenomenon, but it's just something about that side by side the talk flows easier, and we can talk about anything. And the topics of GI distress come up all the time. Runners are just famous for talking about things that are way too much information for the normal person, but it's just something we've all experienced and we've all been through. And so we always kind of go there almost immediately. So I think that there's just this bond of we all kind of have similar experiences as runners. So as you begin running and you're running with other people and you start to share, well, I had this race and I didn't do so well, or I had this bad experience, or I went to this race and I just crushed it and it was amazing and I felt great. Everybody can kind of relate to that. We've all had those ups and downs when, during our training runs or during a race or just during, a regular easy run. Sometimes, some days are better than others, and everyone can kind of relate to that, whether or not you're fast or you're, fast is a relative term, or if you're, a back of the packer. It's like we've all kind of had those same experiences. So even if I don't run with people on a regular basis because they might be faster than me, we still have kind of that bond because we understand what it means to go through this, what it takes to get through a long race, what it takes to do the 16 to 20 weeks of training.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're running and you're running by yourself, I feel like, yeah, that's nice to do sometimes. But if you are not running with a community, you're really missing out, because there's so much to be gained from just having that side-by-side motion with people, and you just get to know them on a different level. And I think runners are also, because we know how hard it is, I think it's so much easier for us to cheer each other on and help each other and be supportive of each other when we're going into a race or going through an experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have a group chat with a group of runners that we call ourselves the cool kids. And, I can post in there, today was, absolutely awesome. I had this great run or whatever. And everybody's like, good for you. Yay, happy. And if I didn't have such a good run, they're like, oh, well, it'll be better tomorrow. We'll get back out there. There's this feeling of I have a place to land and to fall a little bit that other people may not understand that aren't runners. And my husband will say, well, you're doing a lot better than everyone else out there. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not really helping me. I need that level of understanding that, yeah, these things are going to happen. But I tell anyone that's starting out running or wants to get involved in a run club, please do it, because all your best friends are there. I mean, these are the people that are going to help you and make you better.
Yeah, I love that. And, it is something too, just not thinking about like how you were the visual of running side by side and the conversations that you can have. And that, like, I'll see people, post on a social media thing, like, I'm lonely and I'm looking for adult friends. And I don't know if they like running or not, but like, I just think about that. Sometimes it's really hard as an adult to meet friends, and running is I'm just listening. I'm like, I need to tell them they need to start running, whether they hate it because their best friends are there. Yeah, or walking. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or there's a lot of people doing run-walk intervals or just walking. I don't know. Probably a lot of couples do this. I've been married a long time. One of the things my husband and I do almost every night is we go for a walk. And just that walking side by side, it just lends itself to a deeper conversation almost always. And I think it's just a great way to connect with someone, whether it be your kids, your spouse, your friends, that sometimes that face-to-face conversation can be a little tougher to really open up. And having that side by side, I don't know, there's something about it. And I'm sure there's been studies done and all the things, but there's just something about that I feel like you just gain a lot more intimacy a lot faster.
Yeah, I like that. I'm taking that with me. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Well, I want to talk about Scott, your husband. So after some time, a lump appeared on Scott, and you had a doctor that said just to watch it for a while, but that turned out to be pretty bad and started a path down a road that the two of you never expected. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so he felt a lump on the side of his neck shaving, and as a typical man, I give him a hard time about this, he didn't do anything about it for a while. And finally, his stepmom noticed the lump, and then when she said something about it, then he decided to go get it checked out, even though I had suggested it a few times, so I give him a hard time about that. But yeah, his doctor initially said, well, we'll just watch it, and, that is not something you should ever just watch. It's an unusual place to have a lump. And it grew really quickly in that month. And so he went back to the doctor, they did a biopsy, and we found out he had throat cancer. And it just was not in our realm of thinking that could happen. We just were so floored. And I think most people probably that get a cancer diagnosis are probably have the same feeling. It's just a punch to the gut. You're not expecting this. And he lived a healthy lifestyle. He was fit and active, and he never smoked. He never chewed tobacco, none of those things. And his cancer is caused by a virus, by the HPV virus, which thankfully they have a, um, a shot for that now. So a lot of younger men don't have that problem anymore. But it is a very common cancer in men in his age because they weren't protected against that virus. And it can lay dormant in your body for 20 years and you not even know that you have it. And so we went through, he went through 35 rounds of radiation and 7 rounds of chemo. And it's a very tough protocol, throat cancer is. It's one of the toughest ones out there because it is impacting your ability to eat and talk and swallow. And it's very, very painful. So he was on a lot of really heavy drugs. And toward the end of his treatment, just really like a zombie. Like he was on fentanyl and OxyContin and all those things. So we get through the treatment and things are looking up. He starts to heal. He was in a feeding tube. We got him off the feeding tube. He had to do a lot of physical therapy with learning to swallow again. And within maybe 6 to 8 months, he started having pain in one of his teeth on that same side. And we just thought maybe it was a root canal or maybe one of his teeth cracked or something. So we thought he might needed to have a root canal. And he did. And it opened up kind of a whole can of worms. And what we found out was that the jawbone had been severely damaged in the radiation therapy. And it was essentially dying. And when things start to die inside your body wants to push them out. So he was trying to push out against his teeth, and he was in a lot of pain. And this went on for a while. We had a couple different surgeries that they tried to do to relieve the issue, and really nothing was working. And finally, his surgeon said, we have to rebuild his jaw. His jaw had gotten so fragile that they were concerned it was going to break, and there was going to be all these issues around that. So they replaced his jaw bone with a bone out of his leg. And this surgery to replace the jaw is incredibly intense. It's a very long recovery. And bless him, he had every single complication you can possibly imagine from the surgery. He had it. Oh, only 5% of these people have this complication. Well, he had that complication. So a lot of infections, a lot of issues around that surgery. And to this day, he still struggles a lot with trigeminal neuralgia, which is basically chronic pain in his and the nerve there in your jaw. And there's really not much they can do about it because he has a lot of scar tissue and there's just no way to kind of get to that nerve and try to relieve that. So it's still to this day a lot of pain, trouble swallowing, trouble speaking. And if you think about it, eating is kind of how we socialize in our culture. And when all this went down, we just going out to eat with friends or going out to eat together just really ended. And it's not enjoyable for him. He's very self-conscious about it. He chokes a lot. He aspirates a lot. So it's difficult for him to eat. And then it's difficult for him to talk. So trying to talk and eat is really problematic. So our social life just really went completely to zero. And I'm a social butterfly. I want to be out and talk to people. So that adjustment was really hard. And this was also happening during the pandemic when everything was just awful. Everything was canceling, everything was ending. And so it definitely brought me to a breaking point where I felt like, we were never going to get to any kind of light at the end of the tunnel with this, that is he ever going to be healthy again? Are we ever going to have a normal life again? And, the short answer to that is no, you don't have, quote, normal life anymore. You just have a different life. And I think once I came to accept that, then I was better able to deal with all the things that were happening and also to find ways to make myself have a good life. Like I want to be social and do things, but without having to lose our connection as well, the connection that me and Scott have together. So we had to find new things we could do together, but I also had to find new ways to fill my cup up, and running really helped with that.
Yeah, because you talked about this, like this, you got this mix of emotions of,
Mhm.
you're watching your husband suffer, you're taking
Mhm.
care of him, and you're trying to process everything. There's this anger that's emerging as well, because then there's other things that kind of fall through, things you were hoping for, like with the Boston Marathon. And we'll
Mhm.
talk about that too. And then this desire to run because that was an outlet, but you'd mentioned just feeling this guilt to going and doing that while he's
Yeah.
suffering. And plus, you also had a full-time job. You're working in
Mhm.
sales and everything that entails too. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, it's all just a lot.
It was.
It's as yeah, yeah. And then you say, okay, I need to do something about it. And so, at what point did you decide I need to do something? How did this help? And how did you get over the like? No, I do not need to feel guilty for running.
Well, I think him and I both like struggled with a lot of guilt. He felt guilty about feeling like he was ruining my life. I felt guilty because I was healthy and he wasn't. I felt guilty because I felt cheated out of our life. I felt guilty because of that, because I'm healthy and why should I feel cheated? At least I'm not sick. All these guilt is such a wasted emotion, but it's there, right? And I started to wake up in the middle of the night just so angry and fuming mad, and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I just did this over and over and over again, and I was just so furious at the whole situation, the fact that he was sick, that he was going through all these things, and that our life wasn't what it was before, and we couldn't do the things we used to do together. And we had a big life. We were very adventurous. We did a lot of things together, and all of a sudden those things didn't happen anymore. And I think it came down to a day, and I don't really know what happened that day or anything about that day, but I just remember that it just brought me to my knees one day, and I was in my living room, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't take the pressure, the feeling of I'm just not a person who's angry all the time, and I'm not a person that can really maintain that energy. So it was just consuming me. And I just had this moment of just complete breakdown. And I wrote in my book how I cried so hard my abs hurt for like 3 days afterwards. It was that hard. And I don't know why I struggled so much with seeking help. I maybe it's just a product of my generation. I don't know. I don't really understand why I struggled with it, but I sought out a therapist, and it was really the hardest phone call I've ever made in my entire life. I was so scared to call and ask for help. And then once I did, I didn't understand why it took me so long or why it was so hard. But I sought out a therapist, and I got lucky that I had a good one from the beginning. And it did take me a little while to kind of open up. I think I was afraid to admit how mad I was
Mm,
about how this was affecting my life, because I didn't want to admit that I was mad about that. I didn't want to admit to anybody that I was pissed off that my husband was sick, and that it was putting a damper on my life. It felt so selfish. It felt so selfish. And it sometimes still does. I mean, I'm cringy saying that, but also she made me realize that it was happening to me. These things were happening to me too, and that it was okay to be mad about that and upset about that, and to let it go. And I think once I was able to get there to admit it, that that's what I was mad about and that was what I was upset about, then it was just like, okay, this is off my shoulders now. And it was weird. It was like the anger and disappointment and everything just kind of melted away.
mm,
And I was able to just accept the fact that I'm not a terrible person for feeling like this, that it's okay to take care of yourself as the caregiver, because you often feel like I have to do everything. I have to be the strong one. And you do. And you do have to be their rock. That is for sure. But you also have to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, then you really can't help them.
mhm.
And that doesn't mean just physically, that means mentally and emotionally as well. So it was a really good learning lesson. I think that you can't do everything by yourself. So
Yeah.
therapy can be with a therapist, but it can also be if you're a runner with your running people, if you're a Pilates person with your Pilates people, whoever it is that's in your tribe, to have that conversation with, or the people that can help you through that process. It's very helpful, and I think emotionally helped me so much during that time to support him better.
Yeah. Were you able to communicate how you were feeling with him kind of early on? Or did you also feel like, I don't need, he doesn't need to know how I'm feeling? Or at what point did you feel like you could share?
Yeah, I didn't want to let him see how hard I was struggling, because I didn't want him to feel any worse about it than he already did. He already felt terribly guilty because he was sick.
Yeah.
So I didn't want him to feel even worse because I was struggling with my own issues. So that kind of puts you in a situation where you feel very isolated and kind of lonely. Like the person closest to you, you can't even talk about this with. So I felt like I needed to be his rock and to be the person he needed to lean on, and I needed to figure out my stuff kind of separate. Now, is that the best way? I don't know, but I think that I was able to share with him more later when he was a little healthier and a little
Mm,
better off on his own emotionally, because I didn't want to put that on him, not when he
uh-huh.
was really, really struggling. And also, I think being on so many meds, he couldn't really take it in. It
Yeah.
was difficult because some of these meds really affect your attitude and your just ability to empathize. So it didn't feel like the right time. And so I waited until I felt
Hmm.
like he was a little bit better able to handle it.
Hmm. Yeah. I think, you had mentioned too, just like your socialized going out to eat that changed, and because you're a very social person, and that
Hmm.
he talking was hard and eating is just not enjoyable, but that you eventually were able to find things that the two of you could
Hmm.
continue to connect on while you are also still doing all your running. Because, like you said, this happened around the pandemic time. And so that's 5 years ago. And if we remember, you started, you did the London at 50, and then the
Yeah.
goal was before 60, and you're not 60 yet. And
Yep.
so there's a lot that has happened in these past 9 years, or, even that. And I'm looking at the time, so we don't have as much time as I was thinking we did in my head. But I want to, I just share a little bit, and then have you kind of go off of that too with any of the other races that, you had applied for the Boston Marathon, and you were able to do it for a charity. And so you worked so hard
Hmm.
while taking care of your husband, while working as well, to
Hmm.
raise all this money. And then COVID happens, and it gets shut
Shut
down.
down.
But what happened to all the money? Did it go to the charity, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it was a crazy time, and I was lucky enough that my charity, the money did go to the charity, and my charity did offer me a chance to run the actual Boston Marathon when it came back. I had to raise some more money, but not as much as I had to raise the first go around. Other folks weren't so lucky. Some of them had to raise the same amount of money again the second time around. So it was a crazy time. It was a really rough time for a lot of people, not just charity runners, but people who qualified to run for Boston. It was just a very stressful, very, very rough couple of years there. But it was all worth it when we finally got to run it and experience it and have our moment. And I am forever grateful that the Boston Athletic Association allowed for that to happen. They could have very easily have said, too bad, so sad, and said, you guys have to try again next year. But they didn't do that. And I feel like that was very important to me, and as runners themselves, they probably understood what we were going through. So, yeah, it
Mhm.
was a lot of work, and I look back on that time now, and I don't really know how I did all that. I really don't. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then you do the virtual race because it was during COVID. The
Mhm.
virtual race was the one that you did at that the beach town, right?
I did it in Idaho. I went out to
Not a beach town.
Idaho
Okay.
because I had a friend that lived out there. It was a much
Yes.
cooler temperatures. And then the day of the race, the wildfires broke out, and we had incredibly bad air quality. And it was crazy. It was very, very smoky. And at that time, a lot of people had to postpone their virtual marathons that were out west because the fires were so bad. But luckily, I got mine in that day.
I mean, I just think of like all of the outside of your personal life, just the emotional, mental, physical turmoil that running can bring. Because you talk to about just the knee pain, and then how
Hmm.
this one doctor tells you not gonna be able to run again. You were really mad at that doctor, like, I'm never gonna see you again. And then you eventually found a doctor that said, no, you love running. We're gonna figure out to make this work. So then this doctor helps you, and you use all this money goes out to do
Yeah.
that as well. And I'm listening, just thinking, I don't get it. What? Because I'm, like I told you, I'm not a runner, but I'm just thinking, wow, you have this love and this dedication for this sport that has brought so many relationships, so many accomplishments, so many things to you that you never, ever, ever thought would ever happen, especially
Mm-mm.
from this clumsy teenage girl to this, not jazzercise, but the Bally's Fitness workout classes. That's like you've always wanted to be a part of a team. And here you were starting in your late 40s that you have found this team, you found this family that
Yeah.
uh, is just this whole other world. You became this 6-star finisher. You ran. Everyone needs to know you ran in 4 hours, 41 minutes, and 48 seconds, which was 1 minute and 10 seconds faster than your first race in
Mhm.
London, which was 8 years earlier.
Right.
You did it. That's amazing. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Robyn. That's
Thank you.
awesome. And then you ran your first ultra marathon, and you wrote in your book that you're not stopping now. You and I'm like, I know. What's next? What's next? I can't wait to to
Oh,
to find
everybody
out.
asks me that. Everybody asks me that. What's next? What's next? And, I think for me, I just want to keep doing what I can. And I want to stay in the running community as long as I can. I don't know. I've got cartilage issues and knee problems, but I'm still out there. I'm still running. I'm still making goals for myself. Still having fun with it. And I think that's what it's all about. If you're having fun and you're enjoying it. And I talk a lot in my book about just the adventure. And I am an adventurous person. I know not everybody is adventurous, but I feel like a kid again when I'm out there, especially running in places I've never been before. You get to see things on the road with your own 2 feet that you just don't see driving around in a car. I'm an avid snow skier, and it's the same thing. When you're on top of a mountain, you're just seeing views and places that you just don't see if you're on a bus or in a cab or whatever. And it's just an amazing experience to just be on your own 2 feet and getting around and seeing just incredible sights and wonders. And even if I'm just running in, a neighborhood, you just notice so much more. And
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like being able to get around on my feet. And I think about it when I'm driving around in a car. I'm like, I could have just run here. Oh, it's not that far. It starts to kind of change your perspective a little bit. And it also opens up other avenues. I started swimming when I got injured. I started cycling more and just trying other things and experimenting with that. And now I love swimming. I swim all the time, and it's just a whole different set of people and groups and a whole different camaraderie over there. So it can open up other doors. And whether you're a runner or you want to do something else, kind of immersing yourself in a tribe and a group just really starts to open up so many more opportunities for you, and just let yourself kind of be in that group and that tribe and accept it. And you might be surprised at how much it helps you.
Yeah, that's great. That leads in kind of what you were saying, just leads into my final question that I love to ask everybody. That, if you could encourage that one woman who, whatever it may be, she feels blocked or limited to pursue a dream, a goal based on her age specifically, or a life circumstance, something hard has really happened. What would you say to encourage her?
Well, I would say start as small as you can. Change does not have to be huge. It doesn't have to be this big giant leap. Take small incremental steps, and that will lead you to major change, but only if you stay consistent. And I created a methodology called the 30-second shift, named after my 30 seconds on the treadmill. And if you can do something for 30 seconds, we're talking a half a minute, whether that's writing a sentence or doing a push up or, running for 30 seconds or walking or whatever, just if you can do that for 30 seconds, and then do it again the next day and double down on that, you can literally change your life. And James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits, that even doing 1% of effort will compound over time. So
Mm.
just start with the smallest thing you can. And if you can only do 30 seconds, well, you're doing more than you were the day before. So anytime people ask me that, I say, you want to write a book, you want to start a new practice at something, you want to clean your kitchen, you want to cook a Mediterranean meal or whatever, start with the smallest, tiniest thing you can, and then build on it the next day and keep doing it. And discipline is not, people say, oh, you're so disciplined. No, it's not a part of your DNA. It's not a trait that you have. Discipline is a part of your identity. So I don't always feel motivated to get up and run every day, but it is who I am. And so therefore I do it. It's a part of my life. And when you take on that identity, I am a runner, I am a writer, I am a cook, I am a whatever, then that discipline is not so hard anymore, right? So it's just a part of who you are. So really, if you're wanting to do something and you feel stuck, start small and then own it. Say that's who you are. And people will say all the time, oh, I don't feel like a runner. I'm not a real runner. Well, you are. You are one. And if you are writing, then you're a writer. If you're swimming, you're a swimmer. You don't have to be a world champion at it. You're still doing it. So, and I also think you just keep dreaming and keep making goals, because there's no reason why you have to ever stop doing that. You're never too old to dream another dream.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that. Stay consistent with it. That's huge. Well, Robyn, thank you so much. Your book, A Runner's World by Robyn Godfrey. And
Running the World.
Thank you. I wasn't looking at my notes. And tell us where we can find you on the socials and your website. And if you have any upcoming speaking engagements, or if you're going to be on the news again. I feel like I'm always seeing you. Robyn's on the news.
Yeah, the book is called Running the World, and it's available on all of the book outlets, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and it's also available in audio format. So thank you for listening. It is my voice, so you will hear me on the audio. It was a lot of hard work. And if you want to imagine what I was doing while recording that, I was in my master bedroom closet the entire time I was recording that. So, because that's the most insulated place in my house. But you can also find me on Instagram. I'm at beachy_runners. I live near the beach. And my website is Robyn, ROBYN, Godfrey.com. And you can see my booking for speaking events there. And my book is also there too.
Love it. Well, Robyn, thank you so much for taking your
Thank
time,
you.
Sharing your story. Everybody get the book, because we did not talk about everything that you need to listen to or read in the book. So, Robyn Godfrey, thank you so much for joining me today on the More Than Your Age podcast.
Thanks, Erica.
If you were encouraged by today's episode, like and subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend. You can find me on all of the socials at More Than Your Age. Keep striving for your goals, live fully, and we'll catch you next time on the More Than Your Age podcast.